Hi, everyone. My name is James Zahadny, and I am the, I'm the co-founder, and I'm the Chief Creative Officer, formerly, now the Creative Director of Dope Media, which does Dope Magazine, which hopefully you guys are familiar with. If not, I got a copy here for you to grab on your way out, and that's the Oregon edition, so it's where it needs to be. I want to kind of start out just kind of getting to know who's my audience today. So are we, everyone here currently in the cannabis industry? Raise their hands. Is everyone most likely? Some people getting into the cannabis industry. It's not that eyeball you. Okay, cool. Right on. Well, my history, and the reason why I guess I'm an accredited speaker here is we founded Dope Magazine back in 2011. That was back in Washington State, where we launched the magazine at Hemp Fest, and that was a big festival in Seattle that happens every year for the last, I think this is their 27th year this year going on, and it's a major festival for cannabis kind of rights and freedom, and obviously it started long before legalization, long before medical even, so it was a very progressive event, and we felt like that was a great place to launch our brand, Dope Magazine. And 2011, we decided to put it together and stand in the middle of HempFest and hand out magazines to anyone that would take one. And we got a lot of traction, and a lot of people kind of liked the message that we were spreading. And I guess that's the genesis of it all. It kind of blossomed after that. Oregon was our second market that we opened. I think we started in 2013 in Oregon. And we've now expanded to 8 different regions, and we also distribute nationally throughout the entire country that has any medical or recreational legality. So we're pretty spread out now. We got a lot of great content and stories to share, but that's sort of my background. I come from a brand creation background. I've also created other brands for other companies, including nightlife venues. I started another publication back in 2007. So my whole kind of existence and being is creating brands, and also the marketing that goes behind the brands to kind of reinforce the brand values and everything. So today, what I wanted to kind of share with you guys is sort of a little bit about my journey, but then also kind of touch point on some of the key things that I think a lot of companies don't think too much about in their early stages or even in their late stages, which is creating a relevant brand that's going to stick around for a while and not just kind of get washed away in the midst of all these people flooding into the industry right now. So I think it's a very valuable thing to really spend some time curating your brand and making sure that you feel like you're building something that's going to have legs, and it's not going to just be another product on the shelf, which none of us want to do. So we're going to jump right in, and I think I kind of broke this up into a few different sections, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on one section in particular, which I think really breaks down the core basis of what I believe branding is all about. But we'll start with sort of just going an overview. So I'm going to start with just kind of talking about the definition of a brand. It sounds kind of silly, so I'm sure all of you guys have your idea of what a brand is in your mind, but it may not be always accurate of how you should look at it as a business owner or as a marketing person. You need to kind of look at it a little bit differently than you do as a consumer. So I think we'll spend some time defining what a brand is and then building your brand. So I definitely want to spend some time talking about that. I'm assuming that's why some of you guys are here, is you're looking to either build your brand or to maybe reinvent your brand if you currently have one, or maybe just give it a refresh. And all those things are awesome things to do very regularly. Design, definitely want to talk about that. I do have a background in graphic design and in that world, so I definitely want to make sure that that's never skipped over as a very important part of a brand. And then, of course, marketing. I'm not a marketing master, but I definitely understand the value of marketing, and there's definitely things that we can do better as an industry, and definitely, any industry can do better in marketing their products. It should be a never-ending thinking point for you. So let's jump right in. We're going to talk about the definition of a brand. So it's a great quote. I pulled that from Jeff Bezos, and a brand for a company is like a reputation for a person. So you earn reputation by trying to do hard things well. So with Dope Magazine, when we started it, we wanted to have a very organic sort of from the ground up approach, and we didn't want to come in and be like, hey, we're this new magazine, everyone should work with us. We understood that there's communities involved. We understand that each different state has a different kind of vibe and a different basically group of people that are part of this industry, and Oregon is a lot different than Washington, and Washington is a lot different than Colorado and California and so on and so forth. So really understanding that your brand how you decide to roll it out is sort of, that is how people are going to perceive you. So we would spend the time getting into the communities, knowing the people that were doing things in the community, and then introducing ourselves slowly because we thought our brand was very organic. And DOPE actually stands for Defending Our Patients Everywhere, originally when we started. Now the acronym has changed to Defending Our Plant Everywhere. Since legalization happened, we still speak to the medical side, but we also got to embrace the recreational side as well. So that was sort of our calling card was, the patients and medical. And of course, this was 2011, long before it was recreational. So we had to make those decisions early on as far as, this was our core values of our brand, and we want to stick by it. And I think that resonated really well, and I think that's why we got the quick sort of embrace from the communities, and they understood that we were here for more than just, being a glossy magazine on the shelves. We wanted to actually give back to the community as well. So let's talk about some brands that do a good job. You guys obviously recognize Nike, and there's a couple others, but if you look at it like this, Nike is a brand, but Reebok is a shoe company. Does that make sense to everybody? It's a little, thought-provoking, but I think if you look at it like Nike actually has an identity. It has values. It has very specific things that they're known for, and they outreach further than just selling you shoes. They're doing a lot of stuff through community outreach, through this or that, and so I think if you look at it that way, and you also look at something like Virgin. Virgin to me is a brand. United is an airline. You don't think of United. You don't really think outside of the scope of it just being an airline. Whereas Virgin, it brings up a lot of different emotions and a lot of different thinking points, especially if you're flown on Virgin. It's a lot, has a little bit more excitement, a little bit more well thought out, well designed. So those types of things really differentiate, I think, these companies from one another. But Nike and Reebok are definitely a great example. I was actually going to try and ask you guys if anyone knew what the Reebok logo looked like. And now looking at this, probably none of you guys would have been like, oh, it's a weird triangle with, it's not. No one knows, right? But Nike, everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's a swoosh, right? We all know that. So they've done a really good job branding themselves, obviously, for many, many decades. But that's just a quick example of sort of the quick, knee-jerk reaction to whether a brand's doing a good job or a brand's kind of lacking in their overall branding. So these are the 4 things I want to spend a little bit of time on today, because I think these are the 4 things that really, if you guys really just kind of take anything away from this talk today, these are the 4 things that I think you guys will find a great success in creating your brand. So the 4 keys are, to differentiate, to create authenticity, have some kind of values to your company, and then to unify it all together, which is super important. So we'll go through each one. I'm going to spend a little time talking about it. But the differentiate, I think that's my favorite thing, because we're in a sea of sameness right now in the cannabis industry. Not saying everyone is, but a lot of people come into this company, they're quick to create a brand, and they want to use big words like canna or green or all the common names that I think a lot of people have used as sort of a quick idea, and then they just run with it. But they're not thinking long term is, hey, there's going to be 100 other companies with green in their name or 100 other companies with canna something in their name. So thinking through that a little bit, and I understand that some people feel like that's a quick way for people to know that they're a cannabis company, but you don't have to be that obvious all the time. There's other ways, like what does Nike mean, right? It's the god of some, Greek god, right? So what does that really have to do with my basketball shoes? So it doesn't have to give a direct translation, but you need to be clever in certain things on how you develop your brand name. And I think differentiation is important because, each day there's more and more companies coming into the industry, right? And basically in our industry, it's going to be both big and small people. So you guys have noticed there's a lot of boutique brands. There's also some big boys coming into the market too that have this giant infrastructure in place already. So you're not just competing like it was 4 years ago against your fellow growers or your fellow, retailers. Now it's a lot more, and it's going to continue to get that way as things consolidate and as the industry continues to change. Over the 8 years I've been in it, it's completely different today than what it was 8 years ago, obviously, but even 2 years ago, it's completely different. And you go to different markets, and I do recommend travel around a little bit, check out other markets like California, check out Nevada, see how they're kind of doing things too. There's a lot of things you can pick up from some of the things that they're doing and some things that you're doing locally, and maybe there's ways to sort of embrace new ideas and new concepts. But overall, think of how you're going to differentiate your brand And that can be everything from the name to the logo to your values to anything and everything. I mean, there just needs to be that one thing that you can kind of hang on to where this is my thing, and this is something that no one else is really doing or no one else is doing really well. So that is a really easy way to sort of dig into that. The innovation of products and services are moving way, way, way too fast right now for any business to just rely on just out innovating the next person, right? Basically, you've got to realize that everything right now, cannabis is more or less is becoming a commodity, right? So the average consumer isn't looking at it like, oh, I'm gonna, this brand is so much different than this brand. Everyone's looking at like, it's cannabis. Now there needs to be that next level of like, why am I picking this strain versus this other company's strain? So there needs to be that quick differentiation of like, it could be something as simple as packaging, right? And there's little things like that, I'm a packaging nerd. I'll go to a store and see a package I like. It might not even be a great product, but I'm like, ooh, this is cool. I'm gonna grab that, But I think sometimes people react that way. Sometimes people, react opposite to that. So it really just depends, but you need to know sort of a quick differentiation and whether that's something as easy as packaging or as complex as like your community values that you want to incorporate into your brand. That can be something too. But finding something is what I'm trying to get at, whatever it is. I think that everything that's going to be left at the end of this all, once it's all kind of shakes out over here in the next few years, is really going to be who is sort of doing a better job marketing and branding themselves. And it sounds sad because I think there's still got to be obviously quality products. There's still got to be a lot of things that we all care about. But at the end of the day, the race is going to be who's doing a better job marketing and branding their company. So as you're working and you're leveraging your brand to stand out, here's a couple questions, and these are the quick, easy ones that I use when I'm consulting people. Who are you trying to reach? Who is your target demographic? Please don't say everyone, because that's the worst answer you could ever write down. Everyone's my customer. No, not everyone, because you're gonna, just by natural ways, you're gonna appeal more towards this person or this person, no matter how you wanna try to carve it up. Your packaging, your logo, your branding, your website, your social media, all that stuff's gonna play into sort of who your core demographic is. The more specific you can be, the more success you're gonna have. And that's just bottom line. If you gotta sit down, if you haven't already done that exercise, do that exercise. Your marketing person should know that like the back of their hand. They should be able to pull out a card out of their pocket and be like, this is our audience, So make sure you guys spend some time really digging into that. The next one is, what is it that makes you unique from the people who have the same ideal audience? So, what is it that makes Nike more unique than Reebok? They have the same ideal audience. They're going after a certain type of athletic person or lifestyle person or whatever, but what is it within that sphere now? So now that you've narrowed it down from everyone to this group of people, now there's gonna be other companies in this kind of sphere as well. So within this sphere, what's your little bubble gonna be within that sphere as well? So you can just say an easy answer is millennials. Everyone likes to use that word. So I want to market to millennials. Okay, great. Are you marketing to the health and wellness side of millennials? Are you marketing more towards the lifestyle, cool kid side of millennials? Are you marketing towards the young, professional side of millennials? So you got to kind of just figure that out. And then again, the more you can drill that down, the more you can really find success in your marketing. And then the last one is, why should someone buy your product or use your service? So simple stuff, right? Why? Why do I like your product? It can be something basic, and again, this isn't gonna get you as far as some of the other ideas, but you have quality product, you do all the right things, you grow it correctly, you sell it correctly, or you can go down the other road like a Tom's or someone like that where they do some sort of a give back type of thing. There's a lot of different ways to sort of make you kind of engage someone to want to buy your product, but overall there needs to be that something there that's going to kind of make you stand out from the crowd, and you want to then take that and highlight it as sort of the thing that you're known for. So I think with Dope, we were known for our patient, kind of outreach and our support in the early days, and that was something that we kind of hung on to really hard and separated us from the other publications like High Times and the other ones, because we actually did stuff for patients. We had a patient of the month every month, and we gave them an ounce of cannabis for their ailments and stuff like that. So we really drilled down on that specific thing that we wanted people to know about us, and it was successful. So definitely spend some time on that. Okay, so differentiate. I think kind of got that understood. Authenticity is the next one, and I think this one is something that a lot of people tend to sort of glaze over. This is something where I say you dig into yourself a little bit. Don't come up with something. Use something that you or your partners or, I'm not sure if everyone in here is an owner or executive, but definitely think about a story within your infrastructure that can really drive home authenticity. So everyone here has a past, right? Whether it's history is good or bad, is brought to where you are today. So your failures and your successes are all part of what makes you unique. So it's important to share them with your audience in a way that makes sense. So my previous life was, I was a bartender for many years, and I worked my way up the ranks, and I opened up a nightclub one day in Seattle, and I was very proud of that, and I used to, do all these events and stuff like that. And so when we were creating Dope, I really took a lot of that world and kind of understanding sort of, how to get people excited about certain things and events and all these things that I use as sort of my story behind Dope and bringing sort of a community of people together. So that was sort of my background, was I was a very kind of like the glue within our community. So for you guys, think about your company and, is there a great way to sort of bring authenticity to it? And again, it could be something as simple as I don't know, trying to think of a great example. Maybe one of you guys can share one later, but there's definitely, everyone here's got a good story, so don't feel like that can't be intertwined into your brand story as well. Your storytelling should be authentic to the bone. Nothing should be half felt. Nothing should be said just because it's trending. It must be real. If the story isn't real, then just best not share it. So don't force authenticity. It needs to really be authentic, and you need to make sure that it isn't something that you're just like, oh, well, this is cool right now, so we want to kind of be part of that train right now, and I know the whole health and wellness right now is a very, very big trend within cannabis. Obviously the CBD thing is going nuts, and everyone is in that kind of zone right now, but think about it too, is like, do I have an authentic story to tell about that? Hey, if you're a cancer survivor, or you use cannabis to help yourself in some way, great, boom, authentic as heck. Let's tell that story, drive it home, make that part of your story. But if you don't have anything to say about the health and wellness side of cannabis, and you've never really dealt with it in any way, it's not gonna come across authentic. It's gonna feel like you guys are just jumping on a bandwagon, and it's not gonna come through your brand. So find something that's authentic to you and to your company, and hang on to that. It doesn't have to be a trendy thing, it can be anything. So, we live in a world where the end user is better than ever at sniffing out fake people and brands. If a brand starts at its core not from a place of authenticity, everything else the brand does will be affected. So again, just driving home, we all can go on social media or go on different platforms and kind of tell when someone's full of it. Everyone nowadays is in this lifestyle, like showing off what they do and how cool they are. And the same thing goes with brands. I hate when brands over curate their Instagrams, or they try to make it look so beautiful and every picture has to be perfect, and it doesn't feel authentic. It feels very contrived. It feels very forced. So I think when we look at our engagement on our social media and what our followers really react to, it's typically the post that you wouldn't think. It's the stuff that is sort of behind the scenes, or it's telling a story about how this photo shoot happened, or it's a goofy little meme or something that just kind of makes people laugh. And it's not always about like, oh, I gotta put my buds and then get some flowers around it and take this beautiful photo at the right angle and the right tone and the right filter, and just, those are the types of things that people smell a mile away, and they're like, I don't know if I feel this brand or not, because it feels like it's just a marketing machine back there just cranking this stuff out. You won't get that authenticity. So it's also important to attribute your success with where you've been, how you want to make a difference, and why you believe strongly in your product or service. So again, just think through that. Think through, where have you been? Like, what is it that you are doing? Why are you doing this? Why are you growing cannabis? Or why do you have a retail store? Or why? Is there something, are you doing this because you feel like it's a community service to your community? Are you doing this because you feel like, oh my God, I grow the best cannabis, I need everyone to try this right now because it's amazing? So no matter what it is, it may sound silly, but really think about that. Like, why? Why am I doing this right now? And if it's just to make money, God bless you, but that's gonna get weeded out eventually, and it's gonna be left with the people that actually have authentic reasons of why they're doing this. So think about that. And then let's actually, I do got a good example of authenticity. So There's a company that, they share their story and they sell acne clearing ointment. Not a very sexy thing to sell, but the founder, they struggled with acne as a teenager. So telling that story was like very authentic to them, and it really resonated well. And she's a friend of mine, and she's had huge success. And of course, it's a CBD acne, acne brand, of course. So, but at least it added that story to their brand that gave them some authenticity, and it didn't feel contrived and didn't feel like it was being, created just to kind of jump on this CBD trend. When your reach is done incorrectly, when I mean that is basically your branding and your marketing and all that stuff, it wastes a lot of time, it wastes a lot of money, and you end up making an organization look desperate and sort of unorganized. So when we get down to the next two things on this list, that's really going to help you understand of how to bring all this together, because we can sit here and talk about, okay, I got an authentic story, check. I got an audience that I think is correct, check. Okay, but now, like, what are we doing with all that, and how is it all going to come to fruition once I launch my brand? So we'll get into that, and for the time being, though, if you haven't launched your business yet, or if you're getting ready to sort of do a rebrand or an update or a refresh, pause until you have all of these pieces in place before you start going for it. I know it's exciting to like, ooh, I'm gonna revamp my social media and I'm gonna put my new logos on all my packaging, but make sure you get the full picture before you just start jumping in and doing these things, or else it is gonna look a little bit unorganized and sloppy when you roll it out to the market, and you only get one chance to make a first impression. You wanna make sure it's done correctly. So let's jump into values. So to reinforce the values that your company places at the forefront of each action. So branding is a way of life, and that uncovers and formalizes the core values of an organization. The storytelling step is one of the best ways to bring a company's mission to the forefront, but first you have to set your values. So again, the common misconception is that branding is all about visual identity and some witty slogans. As you've already seen, it reaches far beyond that. The branding proceeds should uncover the values that an organization truly believes in. Once it does this, it is up to the power of branding to weave that into the story in a compelling way. Also, at this time, an organization should center itself on these values as an operating procedure. So, does that make sense, everyone? It's about weaving all this into your organization. And again, it doesn't just mean cool logo. It doesn't just mean, sexy website. It means everything that you guys do needs to kind of follow these same values. So if you're preaching health and wellness, you guys got to show health and wellness through your social, through your website, through your copy points, through your packaging, through your logo. Everything should circle back to that core value, which is what you guys got to think of. So an example, an eco-earth-friendly cannabis company would have a moral obligation to make sure their products are produced responsibly. This organization would center their brand on the values that they hold dear. If they believe in being good stewards of the earth, then they would support causes and engage in practices that are most important to their cause. So branding kind of acts as your framework, that kind of guides your organization in the right direction. So using irresponsible packaging, and you're on one hand saying that you're this earth-friendly company, but you're using disposable cartridges, you're not really encompassing your values across your entire company. So again, you got to live it, you got to breathe it across all facets of your brand. So let's look at what we do at Dope. So we actually have something that's kind of corporate and kind of funny, but it is something that we came up with many years ago. So we call this Dope Life, and we have this painted on our wall in our office. So we kind of created an acronym around it about all the key things that's important to our company. So dedication, optimism, professionalism, energy, leadership, integrity, focus, and education. So that's something, we, at every decision we make, we try to say, does it check these boxes, or does it leave anything sort of questionable? Is there something that's not, doesn't have integrity that we're doing? No? Okay, cool. Are we educating our readers? Yep. Are we focused? Do we know what we're doing at all times? So these are things that in our office, our management and our teams are always making sure that everything we do is kind of falling within the Dope Life core values, and that's sort of what we live and die by. The last slide is, the last topic, number 4, is unification. So again, unifying each department. So each department in your organization should know its role in the branding process, and that goes from finance all the way up to the executives, all the way down to, the retail side of it, or your salespeople, or your boots on the ground, or whoever it is, they need to really understand this. Everyone should be on the same page as far as the general rules that go into making everything work. Branding, as stated earlier, is a way of life. It's not meant to be dealt with in one department. Simple day-to-day tasks are all part of the company's brand. So that sounds kind of crazy in a little sense, but think about it in the sense of everything you do should be part of your brand. So, it isn't a vertical department, it's a horizontal force that should open up to everybody. That's something that I think is important, because I think a lot of companies, they piece it together and they have, these guys are working in a silo, these guys are working in a silo, and everyone sort of has their roles and responsibility. But if you're a grow, everyone from your salespeople should be preaching the brand, and then all the way down to, the growers and the trimmers and everyone else should be part of that same sort of branding mentality. So how you represent yourself, how you're sort of showcasing your brand to the public, everything about you should scream that core brand identity. Right. So we're going to spend a second talking about design. So being a former graphic designer, I do, there is no mystery that it is a valuable part of creating a brand and running a company. When fully embraced, design permeates every aspect of a product and its company. It guides all touch points, products, services, communications, investor pitches, and customer service department. So how many of you that have a company, that have a brand, spent money on developing your logo? Good. How many of you just kind of knew someone that knew how to do it, and maybe you just called them and asked a favor for them to help you out? Hey. Honest, I love it. And that happens a lot, and again, it's hard because the expenses stack up early on, right, when you're launching a company. And unfortunately, this specific thing right here tends to be the last thing that people want to spend money on, which makes me shed a tear. But it's something that, again, good design goes a long ways, and it's never ends. It's a constant thing that you need to be in front of, and you need to make sure that it permeates, for us. So I'm the creative director, so everything that goes out to the public, I have to approve. So every single page of that magazine, in all 8 editions, which is over 500 pages of content every month, I have to say, yes, it looks good. Every single, everything from letterhead down to a social media post, I have to say, yes, it looks good. So I keep that consistent heartbeat on sort of the brand by looking at the design, because if you have a bunch of people sort of doing their own thing, if you have your content providers putting out content one way, your packaging looks completely different, your social media kind of vibe is totally different than that, and then your website looks completely different than that, people are gonna be confused, they're not gonna understand, oh, this is so-and-so brand. Like, it needs to permeate all of your company, not just your logo, not just your packaging. So think about that when you're looking at design. It's very important. Even investor pitches. Our investor pitch deck was beautiful. I spent probably too much time on it, but it worked, and it did a good job, and we got a lot of feedback from our investors when they saw it. They're like, wow, that's a really nice deck. And whether or not that was the reason they decided to work with us, it definitely didn't hurt, because it definitely showed them that we care all the way down to that level where we could have just threw it into a real cheesy PowerPoint and said, it's good, good enough, So something to always think about is design. And it's an investment, it's not an expense. So as you move forward, think of it that way. Think of it like, this is going to make me more money if I do this correctly. It's not something that's like, oh, we gotta go give some graphic designer $1,000 to work on this, No, it should be something just as important as buying a new piece of machinery or buying the newest POS system or whatever, your investments are into your company. It should be something that you really look at as an investment, because it is very, very important. And there's a lot of great design firms, especially out here in Oregon. There's quite a few out here that do great work. So I definitely recommend checking some out if you're kind of hitting a brick wall on design. All right, and then the last piece we're going to kind of dig into is marketing. So everyone thinks we are in the cannabis business, and guess what, guys? We're in the consumer goods business. I know that sounds weird if people have never worked in the CPG market, but this is what we're doing. We're creating consumer goods, and again, this obviously is focused on recreational companies, not medical, but hopefully everyone in here has a recreational arm to what they do. So basically, think of it as anything that you buy in the store, whether it be dishwashing detergent or lettuce, everything is in that same bucket of consumer goods. So the keys to marketing success. These are my little things I put together. So your desire to market your brand needs to be insatiable. I like that word, insatiable. So constantly thinking about this. How many people here's company has a marketing manager? Okay, nobody. How many people, okay, maybe. Okay, well, that's kind of cheating, but yeah. How many people here have how many people here do their own marketing even though they may not be the professional at it? Yeah, okay. Would you guys like to have a marketing manager to kind of handle all that craziness for you? It gets overwhelming, right? If you're doing all the social and you're doing all the web stuff and you're doing all the packaging. So I mean, all these kinds of things can really add up. So spend time thinking through, do I need to invest in a marketing person? Because again, everyone's time is limited. I'm the same way. Trust me, when we started this magazine, I was freaking wearing 20 hats, doing everything. You know, I was writing stories and laying out the magazine and throwing the parties and doing everything I could. But as we whittled it, you know, as we moved forward, we were able to kind of whittle down people's jobs to the jobs that they are good at. You know, I don't ever claim to be the greatest social media person in the world, but for a hot minute I had to do it. You know, I needed to put that time in because I didn't have someone to do it. But once we got someone, I saw the quick difference of like, holy crap, like I've been really not doing a great job this whole time. Like if I had someone in here earlier, we could have seen a lot more traction a lot faster. And that's been the case pretty much across the whole company is as we've found true professionals and brought them in, it's really seen exponential growth in our company because of that. So as soon as you can, and I know startup world is hard, you can't always just go hire a bunch of people because, you know, the money and all that stuff, but think about it in the way where if you're not giving marketing the attention it deserves and you're not just insatiable about constantly thinking of ways to market it, you know, looking at data, reinforcing your decisions based on data, doing all the things that you need to do as a great marketing person, then unfortunately you're really kind of, you know, crippling your business a little bit. So either you do it yourself, go spend some time learning more, dig in, become insatiable about learning about marketing, or find someone that's great at doing it, like these gentlemen here have a marketing company. The other part too is complacency and hubris are very bad things to have in business. I like that quote because I really feel like that screams about two things that we never did was we've never been complacent. We never said like, well, we're doing great, we're good. Let's just keep on doing what we're doing, let it roll. We always looked at ways to sort of continue to reimagine our brand, to sort of reinvent ourselves, to add new elements, new concepts, new ideas, and nothing was ever too big or too small. It was always like, how can we do this better? What can we add on to this? You know, hey, this whole virtual reality and augmented reality stuff is taking off. How can we integrate that into what we do? You know, just really being constantly on the forefront of what is it that I can do to continue to grow my brand, and that's mostly through marketing. So never get complacent in your marketing. Never feel like just setting a dollar amount on your Facebook ads or whatever and set it and forget it. That's not a good thing to do. You know, analyze that data. See, is that ad actually working for me, or should I move that money into something else? Or should I, you know, and just use that as you're just constantly, you're checking everything. It never should be like sitting there for a long period of time because things change. We're in this world right now where one day one thing works, the next day it doesn't. And so we always got to be in front of these things, and you're going to waste a lot of money and a lot of time if you just kind of do a set it and forget it sort of marketing campaign. It's not the great way to do it. And then, you know, be humble. You know, make sure that you realize that you don't know everything and that you are constantly growing and evolving as a company and as a person. You should always be learning. You know, I'm a sponge. Everywhere I go, I'm trying to learn something else. I never think I know a lot. I get asked to speak at different conferences, but at the same time, I come here to learn from other people too, and you guys should do the same, and that's why you guys are here today. So it's awesome. So complacency and hubris, no good. Consistency is key, and this is the number one thing that I think is the easiest quick takeaway from this is just be consistent. Come out every single week with your blog like you're supposed to, you know, post every day on social media like you're supposed to, you know, continue to always roll out, you know, your new products when you say they're coming out. Don't ever fall away from a consistency because honestly, if you do it long enough, you're gonna win. Period. You're going to win, no matter what. Because, again, these products, magazines come out every single month. We've never missed an issue for, God, how many months it's been? It's a long time. But we've never missed an issue across all of our magazines, across all of our states. And it's because we have that consistent heartbeat that everyone knows this time of the month, I go to my store and there's gonna be the new dope magazine sitting there, right? It makes you happy. You go, yes, I got it. Just like how you guys get happy when you get a certain, newsletter in your inbox every morning or every week or whatever it may be. There's consistency, and then that's how you grow your audience. That's how you grow your following. That's how you grow your sort of just like, I guess you call your base, the people that are gonna follow you till the end of time because you're giving them a consistent product or consistent messaging all the time. And then for the bare bones, if you got a shitty product, great advertising is just a temporary fix. And I hate to say it, but no matter what you do, if your product stinks, you can only do so much, right? So at the end of the day, we can talk about all this great stuff, but I'm assuming everyone here has got a nice, solid product, so we won't have to dig too much into that. All right, a couple parting thoughts, and then we'll do a few questions, and then we'll have about like 10, 15 minutes for that. A couple of just things I liked. A circle of competence, so we kind of touched on this. Only operate in the areas that you know best. So again, I know right now there's a lot of new startups and people just jumping in. They got to wear a lot of hats, but as soon as you can, bring yourself into that world that you know better than anyone else in your company and try to live in that world as much as humanly possible. And if the other worlds aren't your world and you're just doing it, find someone that knows it as soon as you can. The better results you'll get quicker. The experience economy. So the idea that products and services are easily commoditized make an experience the primary type of competitive advantage. So experience, that's kind of a hot word right now, like experiential marketing, right? You guys know about that. It's really about, nowadays, people don't want to just get the status quo. They want a little bit more. They want something kind of cool, something kind of funky that might draw them to your brand. So when we produce events for Dope, one thing we always think about is like, what is the experience gonna be like for people from the moment they walk in the gates to the time they need to go to the bathroom, or whatever it may be. There needs to be kind of thought put into every part of that. So that's why we spend that little extra time and money creating these moments that people can get excited about. Whether, if you guys ever been to a Dope Cup, you walk in, there's fire-breathing cars and all kinds of crazy stuff, but it creates an experience. It's not just a cannabis cup, it's an actual experience. And I think, too, with products, what is it that you can add to it that creates a little bit of an experience? One funny kind of example, we used to do dope products in Washington State. We had a little licensing thing going on there. We created, we had joints, just like everyone else has joints, and we actually added to our joints in our single pre-rolls, we added a fortune. So every time you would open a dope joint pre-roll, there would be a little fortune in there, and you can kind of read it, and they're all kind of witty and kind of tongue-in-cheeky, like around cannabis-related kind of quims and stuff like that. But it was hilarious, and people loved it, and they would take pictures of it, and Instagram their, people always take pictures of their fortunes and stuff, but it's something that added a little bit of an experience to just buying a joint. So not saying you have to get like that kind of quirky with it, but what is it that you can do to make it sort of an experience? Because again, we are in this economy now where people expect that. It's not just the status quo anymore. And there's no such thing as low interest categories, just low interest brands. So we'll leave it at that. Make your brand interesting. Make sure you guys spend the time to really think about your voice, your value, and what makes you authentic as a brand, and then market like you've never marketed before. Whether you do it, you hire somebody to do it, just do it at some level that you feel like you're giving it enough attention, and it's not an afterthought. It shouldn't be the bottom of your P&L. It should be up towards the top. It's an important thing. So anyways, we will leave it at that, and I will open up to some questions if you guys have any. And like I said, as you leave, please feel free to grab a copy of the magazine if you like. That's the Oregon edition. My business card is also up here as well, and you guys can email me or text me or DM me or whatever the ways everyone communicates nowadays. So thank you guys, and questions. I don't know, do we have a moderator in here for questions? If not, we can probably hear each other. We don't need to be on the microphone, so go for it. Yeah.
What would be a ballpark price for having a brand developed by a graphic designer or by a branding specialist?
So that has a big, wide range. It starts here and it goes here. So these guys are yeah, I guess so. I think, once in a while you can find your diamond in the rough person that maybe just got out of art school that's really great at doing this stuff. But when somebody creates we call it a brand identity package, it should be a pretty big project. It's not just like, here's your logo, It should be, here's your logo, here's your letterhead, here's your typefaces for everything, here's, I mean, it's a big package of stuff that you'll get. So my buddy in Washington, he runs a company called Wick and Mortar, and it's pretty much the biggest branding cannabis company in the world. So he does this all day long for companies, but we're talking big multinational companies now that he's kind of moved on to that. So early on, it was in that kind of low thousands range, but as he's grown and as his team has gotten bigger, I mean, you're talking, again, for his type of company, you're talking probably like a $30,000 investment for a brand identity package, but that can also go way up here if you're going to like the big boys, like the big guys that do stuff for like Coke and Nike and stuff like that. Or, you can work with sort of your friends and family that you may know that at least has some kind of a grasp on creating a brand identity. Again, probably not going to be as dialed in as what you would get with an agency because they understand how to deliver it properly, making sure you get a full, package of all the different logo types and, vectors and all the stuff that you need as a brand. And then there's the guy that's just going to be able to whip you up a logo for $500, So, and they have those apps now. Have you seen you can like create your own logo on your phone? I'm just like, oh God, like stop it. So anyways, your logo should, it should be really thoughtful. It should tell a story. It should have some sort of a reason behind it. Why is the colors the way they are? Why is this look like that? Why is that font the one you chose? So everything about a logo, a good brand creator should be able to be like, well, the reason why, and they do that by doing a big old download with you. They should sit down with you for hours and just take notes, right? You're just like, this is my brand, this is my baby, this is why I do it. All that will then go into a nice concept for you. And that's what you get when you pay that kind of money for it. You get that really white glove service. Yes, there is a lot less competition at the top. But I think right now in cannabis, we're lucky that we have a lot of talented people kind of floating into this space from other industries. A lot of design firms are now kind of carving out a cannabis arm of their design firm. So they'll still do the mainstream stuff, but now they're like, well, we should touch this industry too. So there's a lot of options out there. I know there's a few here in Oregon that do a really good job as well, so I definitely would look into it a little bit. And things are always negotiable. Things are always, prices aren't ever set in stone in this world. It's all kind of based on the scope of work and what you want. Yeah. You're fine.
What do you consider, where would you put the value in spending the money on excellent digital media, like having producing shots,
Yeah.
taking the product shots,
Yeah.
having people come to your farm, being able to tell the narrative,
Yeah.
tell your story? Where does that come in on the hierarchy of
So her question was creating content, basically, is what we're talking about for your brand. Super important. Content is king, period. There isn't any product in the world that shouldn't have a great, content development behind it. The question is where in the hierarchy of importance does that lie? I think first of all, brand identity needs to be the first and foremost because that's going to then tell your content how it's supposed to look and sound and feel, right? So you get that done, boom. Now you're going to come up with a content strategy. There's a lot of great marketing companies out there that can do that for you. However, if you feel, you can handle it, it's just coming up with all those, again, consistencies with your content, right? So for me, the two most trending things, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but video, huge right now. Video is kind of God right now in this world, especially now all the social platforms have a great video component to it. And the great thing is everyone could pull a really nice video camera out of your pocket right now. Again, this is like if you had to do it this way, we're keeping it cheap, we're keeping it easy. You have the ability to do it nowadays. You can get gimbals, you can get all these things for pretty cheap and make a pretty professional looking video. Now, if you're a well-established brand and you don't have great product photos and you don't have the basic stuff you should have, spend some money on that. Super important. I mean, if you're trying to sell a product and you don't have a decent picture of it, come on, guys, you need to do that. Why would you go buy a box of cereal that didn't even show what the cereal looked like on the front of it? Probably not, So think about the hierarchy of what you need as a company. I'm sure you guys are all in different places of your life cycle, but if you don't have basic stuff like great product shots, which then you can use for your website, you can use for your print material that you take with you to the stores, you can use on your social media handles. So it's not like it's just a one-trick pony that you're just gonna put on your website. You recycle that content all across all the stuff that you do. So really, really important. Products, product shots, if you are in that business, any kind of video, and again, like I said, even the behind-the-scenes stuff, it doesn't have to always be this slick, glossy, stuff. behind the scenes stuff, a little bit grittier, a little bit, if you guys heard of Gary Vaynerchuk, all his stuff is gritty. Everything he puts out, it's just like background noise and just crappy. He's like clicking his pen in the microphone. It's like, it's gritty content, but it's great content. So it's not always about like how slick it looks. Sometimes it's about just the quality of what you're putting out. So the video could just be, hey, I'm taking a quick walkthrough of the garden, and I just give you guys some behind the scenes of how we trim or whatever. Do it. You could do it on your phone and push it out, and you would still get as good of a reaction as if you did if you brought in drones and did the whole, the whole crazy bit. But, if you can, obviously, more production value, you're going to get more, more love a lot of the time. But you can pull it off in the interim yourself for a pretty reasonable price. So, digital, yes, 100%. Video, photos, as much as you can possibly crank out, the better, for sure. Questions anymore? We got like 5 minutes left. All right. Well, if nobody else has any questions, I will wrap it up. Feel free to grab. Oh, we got one back there. Oh, one more. So like a freelance, or what are you kind of looking for? Are you looking to like hire one on, or are you looking for like just kind of outsourcing it to somebody? Yeah, I mean, with that kind of stuff, you're going to find it through sort of the usual channels of just meeting people, and there are a few outlets where you can kind of hire graphic designers a la carte as you need them. I forget the name of the websites right now; it's escaping me. If you guys remember, there's some new platform where you can actually find graphic designers to hire, and they have like a base rate. Do you know it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Yep. I want a t-shirt, you'll get 15 different t-shirts, and you just pick one. Yep. It's $100. So it's kind of like a bidding platform a little bit, where people, like different graphic designers, like, oh, I'll do that job, and then they'll, kind of show you examples of what they'll do. So there is a lot of outlets. Just do some basic Google searches. You'll find just a plethora of things you can pull from. Also, if you have a good connection to your local like art institutes or other schools like that, after they graduate, they're always looking for like either internships or quick work, and we've actually found a lot of great people that way too, and they love it. You can actually talk to the teachers a lot of the time and let them know that you're open afterwards, and then they'll push them your way as soon as it's done. So that's a great option. Yeah.
So I'm just going to pick your brain.
Sure.
Branding.
Yep.
For something as boring and detestable as accounting, finance, and compliance.
Ooh, challenging. So she's asking about branding for finance and regulatory stuff and accounting. And, I guess the question is first, we'll go back. Who's your core demographic? Who are you trying to attract? Are you trying to attract these guys in this room?
Yes.
Okay. So obviously you want to...
Without the deer in the headlights.
Without the big cannabis leaf that says,
As soon as you start to mention, be it sales tax, payroll tax, your books, people have this deer in the headlights. Oh my God, you're going to start speaking numbers.
Sure. Well, I mean, you got to speak them eventually, right? There isn't any way around it. Yeah.
And I'm not, how do you make that welcoming?
How do you have a website currently?
Just starting.
Okay.
Like less than a week, so I'm working at this, but I've been in the business for decades.
Perfect.
We need to keep this hemp and this area.
Okay, so you guys, we have a great, accountant and regulatory person here if you need services. But I guess what I would say for you is we're in the day and age of making things easily digestible and not overdoing it. So first thing I would say is develop your website. So these nasty things that you're talking about, like all these numbers and, all the stuff that all of us go, oh, like somebody do that. I don't want to think about it. Make it in a way where it's so easy to sort of show your customer. Very big, bold blocks of, information where it's not paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. Give them the basics, right? You don't need to spend a bunch of time on your website, like telling them all your strategy and how you do this and how you do that. Give them the core things and make it in a way where it looks slick and it's easy for you to get through. And it's right, like Apple, everyone loves Apple because their UX and their platform is so user-friendly, and so when you're designing this, just take away all the fluff, take away all the stuff that only you need to really know, and just keep the core essentials. I imagine a homepage where it's like, do you need help with finances? Do you need help with regulations? So it's a real quick, like, pick your adventure, right? Okay, great. And then just, make it simple. Simple. And then later, obviously, you got to get the nitty-gritty down details eventually, right? But at the very beginning, when you're trying to grab your customer, you don't want to just overload them with that. Because trust me, every time, I'm sure you guys all saying, you go to a website and it's like busy and there's stuff everywhere and you're just like, it's hard to navigate. And you're just like, how do I get, you just give up. You're just like, forget it. I'm off.
I've seen a lot of companies use just plain marketing.
Yeah.
They never give their clients or their potential customers the meat that they
Yeah.
need to even ask questions.
Exactly. Just keep it easy, breezy, and then the questions will come as you start doing your due diligence and talking to them about what it is that they need from you. So again, if it's focusing though on cannabis or you're trying to kind of branch off into that, you also need to kind of draw them in to let them know, hey, I'm a cannabis expert. I'm not just an account firm pretending to know about cannabis. I actually know some stuff. So part of your branding identity should also hearken to the fact that you are in the cannabis world. So you're here. You're not just an accountant. You're actually a cannabis accountant, right? And that's super important because we all want to work with people that understand our industry because there's all those little quirks that a standard accountant may not know about, right? So again, just tailor it towards your audience, make it easy, consistent. You should have success for sure. It's a very needed thing also. A lot of people need a good regulatory person. Anything else, guys and gals? All right, well, thank you again. My name is James Zahadni, and I wish you all luck out there. Thank you.